Brad Williams, Excel Prime. 12.8, how to calculate age. Calculating age, it's one of the easiest ways to calculate the age of anything is to use Excel's DATEDIF function. Over here is an example of the DATEDIF function. This function makes calculating any kind of date comparison a breeze. To calculate a person's age, using the DATEDIF function, you can enter a formula like this. Over here, we have DATEDIF, we have the date, and we have a today, and then we use the DATEDIF functions. And let's just do this. Let's equal format text. Let's go over here, and I pointed out this formula text simply prints out the date format. And here we have this function, DATEDIF, and then we also have a today function. The trigger here is this Y. We go up here into D6. Let's look at the structure, and you can see it just says DATEDIF. DATEDIF is an old function that's if you're not familiar with DATEDIF, you won't find it in the functions. Factor equals DATEDIF, and look, it doesn't show up. And you're asking, well, what? I can't answer the question, but it's a very helpful function. And the way it works is we use the DATEDIF function, we use the birth date, today, and then we identify what we want to do. Over here is the DATEDIF function and the code. Y, the number of years in the period. M, the number of complete months in the period. Days, number of days in the period. MD, the difference between the days and the start date and end date. The months and years of the dates are ignored. YM, the difference between the months and start date and end date. The days and years of the dates are ignored. YD, the difference between the days of start date and end date, the years of the dates are ignored. And you can just fool around with this. Go back in here to the age where the formula is. Go in and modify this, put M. And that's the number of months. You want days? Put days. And that's how many days. Go back to year, and the age is 13. If you want to know the dates, multiply 13 times 365, and I'm sure you'll get the same number or days that I showed you on using this day. Now you may be asking, well, what's this other information? Well, here you can go in and you can change the formula if you want. You can add stuff, and here all we said is if we had an if function, and it basically says if the age is less than 18, put in minor, otherwise put adult. If the DATEDIF function just doesn't work for you, go over here to the F column, F16, and here's a new approach you can use. And this just says integer, YEARFRAC, the date and today. And the year fraction is actually, you can see equals YEARFRAC. And the YEARFRAC returns the year's fraction representing the number of whole days between start date and end date. And what does that mean? If we remove the integer part of this, go back here, you see the integer part? If we take away the integer, you're going to get 62.21944. Well, you know, in our minds, I don't think we say I'm 62.21 years old. But that's another way to accomplish the same result. If you want to see that particular formula in formula text, control down, change this to D to F7, integer YEARFRAC C7 today. And what it does is taking the fractional year, we're going internally, we're looking at C7, the date, and the year fraction will take the difference from today in C7 and compute out the difference. And then the integer just takes anything after the decimal point and gets rid of it. It truncates it. You probably can use the trunc function to do the same thing. Moving on. Excel DATEDIF functions, if we want the difference between dates. We have a start date and an end date. We're using this year function. We're looking at E21. We're using, going back up here to the DATEDIF codes. And here we have year. And the result is, remember, this is year. So we have a result of 1 using the DATEDIF function. And that is 10/16 to 10/12/21. And you're saying, well, that's not 21. Well, that's the way this particular format works. It just rounds up or rounds down. It's not giving you exact, it's just giving you the difference. If this was 1/1/21, using the DATEDIF function, and if you want the information between dates, the DATEDIF function, it sort of rounds up. What do I mean by that? If you look at the start date of 10/16/20 and then the end date of 12/12/21, that's clearly more than a year. And the DATEDIF function sort of just rounds that up. If you need exact dates, well, you can simply subtract this end date from the start date. Keep that in mind. As you roll down here, here we have the month function, and that's just going to round to the months difference. Notice the word here, difference in months. It's not asking for exact dates. Here, this is a little more accurate, difference in days. Using the month day function, difference in days ignoring months and years. Difference in months and ignoring days and years under using the YM code, and the Y day code, difference in days ignoring years. You can see it works well if we're comparing from today. The DATEDIF function works fine. But if you want accuracy, then the DATEDIF function has limited capabilities, but it works great up for birth dates. But for anything else, I'd be a little bit skeptical. There's better tools, and that's why DATEDIF is not listed in the functions feature. Brad Williams, Excel Prime, Williams out.